I'm busy and have class today, so this will probably be two short videos, at least for now, but let's get started so I can make up for the days I missed. Apologies, I had work I was doing. Anyways, so let's start with one of the topics, confusion and adaptation. Now, confusion is quite common in the modern world. In truth, it's common throughout history because, well, you don't know everything. And when you don't know everything, you get confused when what you think is going on doesn't line up with what you're observing. For example, let's say I have this pen, and you think, okay, pens are used to write, so this person's going to write with it. But if I instead start drawing with it, then you're a bit confused, especially if the drawing is random. And so you need to figure out what's going on. This applies equally to other situations. And of course, when it comes to sources of information where you would get your initial perceptions, especially those provided by the state, there's a very real possibility that they are wrong. And uncertainty is certainly hard to create in such an environment. How many times have you seen a post, especially online, where it's kind of hard to realize if it's true or not? Because, plain and simply, you can't really tell, especially if it's by a source you understand to be biased very clearly in one direction or the other. And sometimes sources are just wrong. That just happens. False claims can spread, and especially, for example, with news, a lot of times you will actually see basically chains of news sources citing each other, and you don't know whether or not it's true because they don't link to an actual scientific study. I've actually experienced this once trying to find a study for something. I found a news source, figured, okay, they have a link. Maybe this will take me to the report. It didn't, it took me to another news source. And so it's sometimes very hard to find the truth because truth is very difficult when it's going through so many lenses of bias. And especially when they're the state, which has very clear interests, it can be even harder. Let's face it, states tend to like fudging things to their advantage. But we do need planning, and proper planning requires minimizing this confusion and solidifying what we understand to be true. We need to understand what is right and what is wrong, what is true, what is false. And in order to do that, oftentimes we need to consolidate what we know, put it to the side, and then say, all right, what do we do now? In order to ensure this can happen, you must maintain an adaptable position. Sure, you know this. You know X, Y, and Z. You don't know A and B. And so if A and B could potentially harm you, you need to be ready for that. And thus be able to adapt and adjust as necessary. As such, you must hold that position of adaptability, or one which can readily be changed into any other position that is necessary. Combining that with other factors relating to information, it's best not to make absolute claims until certain, to work with what information you do know to be true, and to allow full flexibility on that which is uncertain. For example, this is something scientists actually do. When you see the plus or minus next to like a percentage in science, what that's saying is that's a margin of error. It's saying, hey, we think it's this, but it could be wrong within this range. And that is the whole point of a margin of error is sometimes you're not exact. Sometimes you're not completely right, especially when working with a sample rather than the full population. And so a margin of error is given because, well, sometimes things are off. Sometimes things change and sometimes you just miss something. That just happens. Flexibility is a very, very important thing. Because let's face it, when you need to get from point A to point B, and there's a block in the way of what you would traditionally do, just going there, being able to move around, being able to adapt and shift is very important. And that is a very big key to making any action. Deeply apologize for the constant movement though. And of course, ensuring that what you know to be true is consolidated, figuring it out, and then using that to adapt as necessary is very important. If you, for example, know that someone won't do something, then act accordingly. Sometimes it's best to hold some level of restraint, especially if someone's a bit more confused on a subject. But when you know for a fact that someone will not do something for religious reasons, for other moral reasons, or just they simply do not have the ability to, well then you can safely rely on that and use it. Very rarely you could be wrong still, and some precautions may be needed, but generally speaking, it is very effective. Planning is important, because think about it. Let's say you want to achieve something, right? Well, how do you do so? Besides dropping a pen, what do? Well, you take an action. And you take actions after that and that, trying to build up to what you wish to achieve. Oftentimes that requires planning, since things aren't as simple as A to B most of the time. They have several steps and several conditions that need to be met. And so that is where the planning comes in, and the adaptation for when those plans go awry. Confusion is a natural state. It is something that we often find ourselves in. Rarely are you just going to be able to know everything, and so you'll be in a position where certain unknowns may shock you or otherwise put you off. And so, naturally, you must adapt to that, plan accordingly, and act as is necessary to ensure the best situation comes about. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.